Good evening, everyone. Today I'm going to be responding to the claim that media has a significant negative effect on self-image. And the secondary claims are that media contributes to eating disorders and that media creates a new way of bullying towards homosexuals and transgenders. My response to the first claim will include that the evidence is outdated, that there's weakness to the evidence, that some of the reasoning is flawed, and a counterclaim. So the evidence used to support Claim 1 is outdated, considering that media is constantly changing. Articles such as The Body Electric claim that over the past 50 years since the birth of television, female personalities have grown steadily thinner and give the impression that media influences women to be thin through the use of thin idols. This is no longer relevant because it was published 15 years ago. A more recent piece of media, the article 17 Reasons to Love Your Body Just the Way It Is, published by Cosmopolitan in 2014, suggests that within the last 15 years, media has altered to encourage youth that food is meant to be eaten. As long as one is healthy, that is what is important. There are better things to do than worry about figure, and that there is no such thing as a perfect body. This undermines the evidence to support that media contributes to eating disorders because Cosmopolitan, a form of media, stated food is delicious and meant to be eaten. My second response to the first secondary claim is that the reasoning behind Claim 1 is also flawed, and that the advocate states that media significantly contributes to eating disorders, meaning that eating disorders have reached a level that is no longer tolerable. The definition of significant is in a sufficiently great or important way as to be worthy of attention. However, according to kidshealth.org, only 1 or 2 out of 100 students are affected by an eating disorder, which is only 1 or 2% and cannot be considered a significant amount. Another flaw in reasoning is that media is the cause of negative effects on self-image, but according to the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders, 50% of those with eating disorders suffer from depression, marking mental illness as a significant cause for eating disorders as opposed to media and other causes. Another weakness of the first claim is that there is no evidence to support that media suggests people should measure happiness and self-worth based on their attractiveness to the opposite sex. Because the evidence used to support this claim, the article Self-Esteem That's Based on External Sources Has Mental Consequences, states that, according to psychologist Jennifer Crocker, students do base their self-worth on appearance and approval from others, but does not say how media causes students to think in this way. This undermines the claim because it supports that self-image is important as opposed to how media affects self-image. Lastly, as a counterclaim, one can make the argument that media actually encourages people to love their bodies the way that they are. There are multiple forms of media in which being thick or loving one's body as it is encouraged. There is a television series with an episode describing how women find themselves most beautiful when they are thick. There are songs such as All About That Bass that says, yeah, my mama told me, don't worry about your size, boys like a little more booty to hold at night. But it's also sung by the popular and thick role model, Meghan Trainor. Other thick role models include Adele, Melissa McCarthy, Kathy Bates, and Rebel Wilson. Even cartoons are incorporating characters that are thick, such as Rose Quartz and Amethyst from Steven Universe, Bee from Being Puppy Cat, and the Mummy's Wife from Hotel Transylvania. The responses to the secondary claim are going to include how there's a weakness in the claim, a counterclaim, and how there's a weakness in the evidence. There is reasoning weakness in Claim 2, and that media may create a new way for transgenders and homosexuals to be bullied, but this is because it is a new way for all people to be bullied by a bully, not homosexuals and transgenders alone. Not to mention that the media used for bullying are social networks, a form of media which was not specified by the advocate of this claim, making the claim invalid because not all media creates new ways for people to be bullied. As a counterclaim, in modern times, there is much less rejection and singling out of those homosexuals or transgenders, and actually appears to be encouraged by media. For example, Bruce Jenner underwent a procedure to become a female with nearly the entire transition made viewable by the public. There are songs such as I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry that makes lesbianism appear acceptable and appealing. At La Sierra High School, there were 4 transgenders, each with a Facebook and each accepted and admired in some cases. And there's a new transgender in the new season of American Horror Story that is treated the same as all the other characters. Lastly, there's a weakness in the evidence to support that media creates a new way of bullying towards transgenders and homosexuals. And the evidence from the article, Teen Contributor It Gets Better Project Found Dead, only has one quote supporting that social media assists bullying, which is that people would keep sending me hate, telling me gay people go to hell. And even that is weak because it is rare that I walk out of a mall or in downtown without hearing that I will go to hell. And it has nothing to do with being homosexual or transgender, but rather the appeal to fear. The rest of the evidence from this article shows how media works to assist transgenders and homosexuals to be accepted and accept themselves, with how Lady Gaga says, just love yourself and your set and I promise you it'll get better. The article also states how the company Savage encouraged coming out videos to be posted online, a form of media that works toward acceptance as opposed to degradation, and that inspired hope that life would get better after adolescence for homosexuals and transgenders. Therefore, because of the weakness in the evidence, the weakness in the reasoning, and the fact that media can encourage people to love themselves and encourage people to embrace homosexuals and transgenders, the claim that media has a significant negative effect on self-image is incorrect. Thank you.
All right, well, the main and secondary claims are previewed pretty well, but that's not the only previewing that goes on. You preview all of the responses that you're going to give to each of those points also, which probably isn't necessary as long as the claims are clear in the body of the argument. But it doesn't hurt you. Like I said, it might be a little bit distracting at times. One of the reasons that you have to rush so much is because you are trying to do all those extra things, and I think that's an extra thing that you could probably live without doing, is that kind of preview of your own responses on the individual points. Just make the claims when you get to those. On the first point, you kind of dismiss the argument to begin with, suggesting that it's based on old data, and then you've got a more contemporary information that suggests a different point of view. I'm not sure that the single example that you have there and the one source that you cite is sufficient to address issues on this point that the advocate may have referred to. I'm not even sure that the advocate used the source that you talked about being old, 17 years old or whatever the number of years were, that 15 years ago. As a consequence, I think that you're kind of putting a lot of eggs in that one basket there, and you probably need to find some other arguments on that point. On the reasoning issue, I thought you did a pretty good job trying to diminish this, first by showing that it's relatively insignificant, and second showing that the most significant cause has nothing to do with the media whatsoever. I thought that alternate causality argument was pretty solid. I don't think you could deny that some people might be influenced by these sorts of things, but the question is it a substantial or a significant criteria? And I thought you gave a good criteria for what you mean, what would be required for it to be significant. And you argue basically that there's no measurement on that point that would allow us to reach those conclusions. I thought that that was pretty good. And then you had a good counterclaim that says, in fact, that media is encouraging people to have more diverse views of their appearance. I think, I don't know about all these shows where thick is beautiful. I'm not denying that they exist. I'm sure they're fine. Just like I do know, I have heard of Katy Perry, and I do know about Bruce Jenner. You'd have to, on the other issue, I've heard of some of the things that you're talking about here, but I'm not sure how significant they are. If there was anything that suggested that we could generalize from those examples, that would be helpful. Or, for instance, if you contrasted it to the proof that the advocate offered in their particular point, if you said they don't offer any reason to believe that this is true, they've got a general claim, but this is old stuff. In the contemporary world, in fact, we have reason to believe the opposite, and at least I'm giving some examples, so a little bit more contrast on those points. And then I thought that you did a good job identifying issues on the second point, very similar in the way that you approached the first point. there's some question about whether or not the social media and all media should be equivocated here, and you suggest that they shouldn't be. I don't remember what the advocate's exact argument was when it came to that and whether or not it distinguished those particular points. Again, you've got some counterexamples that you're using to demonstrate this issue. And I did like the notion that, look, it's just, it doesn't change. We're getting the same amount of bullying. It's just being delivered in a different particular way. And I did like the counterclaim that suggests that social media actually is having an impact on those sorts of things. I think that responds to the claim pretty effectively there. All right, thank you.